So, now
Rosie is really neurotic. I'm really sorry. Who picked the horses?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I didn't pick her for that reason.
Neurotic New Yorker.
I picked her for that reason though, because I know she's always on the outskirts. I noticed that.
Well, Rosie was a classic Amish road buggy horse, where she's actually had so much stress on her back that her whole back is in arthritis in it. She's an amazing carriage horse. She actually really did love her job. It was her job, but it was a lot of stress on her body. When we got her, she had been changed over a couple times, had lost people that she loved. She had a couple drivers that really loved her, but had to move on for one reason or another, because she did end up working in New York. And they retired her because she can't do the work anymore the way they need her to do the work, but she loves to work. So they retired her to us. And when we got her, we couldn't believe the shape she was in. She was like almost crippled, her whole back, and she didn't let people touch her. She just wanted to work. It was all she wanted to do. It was really unhealthy.
That's
so
dissociative almost.
we let her just alone. We didn't do anything with her for over a year. And just the kids giving her a massage, Joe Bunny giving her massages, some of the younger girls took over and started brushing her hair lightly. And after a year of being treated like a queen, really, in every possible way. She's also had 3 relationships with male horses here, and every one of them has died. So she's a bit of a tragic character, but we know her now. Like, this is Rosie. This isn't the timid little quiet Rosie that came.
She's coming.
She's just telling you she doesn't want to be in there right now. She wants to be out. So she's
right, and I didn't want to do that to her. I actually because I said I want horses in here that will take it and be okay with it, because I don't want her to
be careless. She
upset.
really hates it. She's not freaking out or anything, but she's just letting us know. Like, this is exactly what she's doing. She's just letting us know, like, this isn't so much fun for me.
So my question then would be, I am totally fine to honor that and said, let's bring her out.
But anybody you bring in here, if they're healthy, they're going to have, like, she's pacing too. She wants to leave. So the guys the old guys, like, or the sleeper guys, like Buford, he doesn't have energy.
So do you think,
all of them are going to have
do you feel that it's okay to keep her in here for another,
she can do her part.
Okay.
Because
I hope that actually in a minute we will tune in to her and see what else she is missing. So let me talk for a minute now about the cycle that I see horses, and I will pick a perfect example because Jesse, everybody here knows Jesse or knows of Jesse, he will be a perfect thing. So this is how I look at, this is my philosophy, and the great thing about this is not oh yeah, here's a new marketing gimmick of let me tell you how you can become the best leader for yours. No, not even a little. This is just like, let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to what everybody came to this world with. That's your essential piece and their essential piece, and let's reconnect to it. There's like no magic to it. There's no nothing to it except open your eyes, your ears, and your heart, and you're there. So, like I said earlier, recovering and preserving the spirit of the horse. So what we just talked about is defining spirit and identifying the spirit. We'll talk about my horse's spirit, does yours in a minute. What I have then, that I use when I work with people, when I work with their horses, is like I call it now a diagnostic process to build a recovery and preservation plan for horse. And that sounds so fabulous, but I'll give you the Jesse example. Because the plan is not something that's written in stone. The plan is something that happens every day. I go out there and I see him and I'm with him. He will tell me what the next step in our plan is. And I can write that down for people that are great about that, like David, who's good with like taking notes and having everything structured. I don't. I just own it here, and it changes. And through my blog, I write it down because I think it's important to share. But it's really a plan you build with your horse. And the way this goes is, most horses, let's just talk about the ones that need recovery, because the other ones are already great, and the ones that need to have recovery start out in recovery of the spirit. Once they come out of it, they become the horses that actually have now spirit. She has spirit back, it seems. Now I'm getting it, that Rosie has really like grab back onto her
She's
spirit.
saying, no, I don't want to do this.
I-
And it's a big
Right, and I love it. That's why I feel like let's get her out again. But we're gonna she's an educator. You are an educator right now. Yes, you are.
when she's in her power.
So, and then from this place now, if we call her, and I'm just simplifying it, because obviously I don't know. I think Fanny is farther along than she is, because what we're looking at is the horses that go through recovery. They actually go through the entire mood gamut, and you can either see really aggressive and pissed off, and now finally I have an opinion, and I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. Or you have the ones that all of a sudden, if they have a person that is caring, they go like, oh, I need you. And that is a whole nother piece. And then sometimes when you give that to them, then they feel more confident, and then all of a sudden they're like, by the way, I didn't like that. By the way, and you're just like, wait a second, it goes like this, and it's beautiful. And what I say, and Joyce has heard me say this so often, it's just a phase.
Yeah,
Do not worry. It's just a phase, because that's what they need to just, and that's part of allowing and grabbing those pieces of confidence and expressiveness and owning everything they have inside. They need to feel it all out, and if you can be with them for that and hold the space, as we say, that is like, at the end, it's always like, wow, we made it. We got through this. But sometimes that's what it takes. So let's talk about Jesse. He came to me. No, I came to him out here in the field. And he was, and I'm writing his story right now, and he literally, this, as you've seen him, yak-like creature, standing by himself. Pam had introduced me to everybody, and finally I was like, who's that? And there's like this little giant of misery. And he was, I still have that first picture. And it was a miserable day. It was a mucky, muddy, rainy kind, and he's just like, woe is me. Right? And then we walked up to him, and I could feel him, and Pam was like, yeah, he's so special. And I'm like, oh my God. And all of a sudden, I could feel his whole, like this energy wash over me. Like this, like, I could feel like, it's almost hard to describe, this intense, there was despair actually in it. That's what I felt. And Pam's like, yeah, we don't really want to find a forever home, because in the winter we want him here, but if somebody, could you take him for the summer? And I'm like, yes, I can. I'm like, oh my God, I have to, there's no way around it. 2 days later, we picked him up. And as he was basically taking the trailer down, I felt, because I never had a draft horse, I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm making it home with him. I released him into the paddock, and I was like, what the heck did I do? This horse doesn't lead well. Joe was there one day. We tried to give him a bath. He dragged us around the manure cart. I was like, Justin came to do his feet in the cross ties, and he was like, and both are sweating and dripping, the horse and the man, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? This horse is angry, he's frustrated, he's sullen, he would stand in the pasture by himself for hours. I would bring the food, he's like, food, and then like, don't touch me. And I'm like, oh, what the heck did I get myself into? And he's huge, and I can't manage him. And that's the big part when we work with horses in this recovery of the spirit. We gotta let go of our control. Our need for human control of how to control a horse and what to do to a horse, that falls to the wayside. And that's the hardest part for us, because I was like, no horse of mine is going to walk around. No. And if somebody comes, all my other horses are well behaved, and he's like, and I'm like, sorry. So I had to let that go, because guess what? That's who he was. And I needed to just let that be. I left him alone. If he ever wanted contact, which he didn't want, and people would tell me, he loves to be loved. And I'm like, really? He is the nicest, the warmest and fuzzy. I'm like, really? I didn't see it. And I started to question, did he like where he was? But then I realized, no. A lot of times people projected onto him he's this big, soft, fuzzy, something. And he was very much engaged with people at the beginning, but as the herd here got bigger and bigger and bigger, he was drifting back and back and back and back, farther into the background. And at this point, he wasn't looking for contact. You know what he was looking for? Space. He had his own pasture, it was huge, and he was just out there by himself. And he would come in for dinner, and lunch and breakfast, and then he would be back out there and he wouldn't want to talk to anyone. And one day, 3 weeks into it, he stood next to me and after he had eaten, he was like, looking at me. I'm like, you're looking at me for the first time. And he said, and I could feel he said, why don't you hang out for a minute? And I didn't touch him because we touch them way too much. You'll be surprised if you stop touching them what they tell you. Because when we do all this, we don't take in anything here. This kinesthetic sense is so much stronger and overcomes all other senses. So if you stand next to them and you just let them show you what they want, and I just stood, he positioned himself next to me and said, like, I need you right there, and I'm gonna go to sleep. And I was like, oh. So I'm like, oh, he wants me to watch over him. He's back while he's napping. And I'm like, well. So I just stood over here and I'm like, well, let's see how long this goes. Now, this is the thing though. I did not leave until he stopped napping. I wasn't like, okay, let me sneak out. And then he wakes up and he's like, where the heck did she go? I stayed with him. And guess what? Horses only nap for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I mean, they don't usually. And after a quick nap, he looked at me and he's like, okay, thanks. And I was like, oh, I guess that was it. That's what it meant. That meant so much to him that I stayed right there with him. This is the meditation piece. This is when he brought me to actually calm down and be quiet and understand that, Nicole, you're really not that important, that you have so many busy things to do. You could stand here with him for a little bit and just be there for him because that's what he needs. Well, that expanded and expanded into different things that nowadays, here we are 6 months later, me giving him good food, giving him food whenever he wanted, almost, which meant I actually had a full-time job feeding the source. Because he needed the mash, he couldn't eat the hay. I mean, he got 5-6 meals a day. Whenever he stood at the fence, I'm like, I'm right there. And he knew he could trust me and build on that. I brought in Eve to help him with his hip, which was, anybody who had seen him here knows he was always like this, and Eve knew exactly what to do about that. And I brought in a friend who had flower essence and crystals to lift his spirits. And all of a sudden, he started to talk to me. So one day I stood next to him and I said, so how was your life? What did you do in the past? Did you do parades? Did you do this? And he looked straight and he went, what's that? Never touched that again. So then he was starting to, his spirit was coming back. Now he's like all chatty and nays and does all kinds of stuff. He taught me that when we did his feet, Justin actually ended up not coming anymore. I had my fairy do it. He didn't like cross ties, it turned out. And he's like, you can trust me just with the rope, and you just hold the rope. And we did that. And then the next time I put the halter, and he was appalled that I didn't trust him enough that he would actually do it without a halter. He walked off from me, and I'm like, oh, and it took an hour to get him back. And then finally he's like, I can do it without. How can you do this? So he was really coming into his own, and I kept enhancing whatever he gave me. I kept building on it. And then we got a goat and a sheep. And he flipped out, and he cranked his hip, and he's like, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, oh my God, what just happened with you? And I was just looking at, my sister was visiting from Germany. I'm like, he must have had a bad experience because that is trauma and he's reconnecting to that trauma. I'm like, there is something wrong with that. I called Eve. She came in an emergency call, fixed him up, and a couple days later I came here and I said to him, can you believe what just happened to him? Blah, blah, blah. She goes, oh, we had those goats here. And they were terrors. They ate his food and were like squatters in his barn. No, like they had goats here when he was here. They squatted in his barn, he couldn't get in there, and he was terrorized by them. So, I was like, no, I mean, you know, but who knows? I mean, this is...
I have to say, because when I hear it, you guys got to know that we love Jesse.
Oh.
He was the most amazing horse, and he's so smart. He taught us all so many things. But he did, when more horses started coming and then those goats came, I never put it together, but the whole...